welcome. Great to be here at the European SharePoint, Azure, Microsoft 365 conference, pretty much everything around Microsoft tech. I'm Chirag Patel. I work with Patel Consulting and I'm VP as well. So it's a pleasure to be here and do the interview. And I'd like to welcome Joanne Klein from Canada.
Yeah.
Come all the way from there. So welcome, Joanne.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you here. And I think it'll be good to at least let our viewers know who you are. And I know you're MVP too. So tell me about yourself.
I'd love to. I'm Joanne Klein. I hail from Western Canada in the province of Saskatchewan. So it was a 9-hour flight for me to get here. I'm over my jet lag now. But thrilled to be here, first time at ESPC. And I run my own consulting company, an employee count of 1, and I spend all of my time working with my customers on Microsoft Purview. And it's a very interesting time in that space. I'm really busy working with customers, so that's the knowledge that I share with the attendees here this week.
Excellent. I think, and obviously I do follow, I'm sure many of you do follow Joanne's blog and all those wonderful tip sheets that you post on LinkedIn, Twitter, and I must say I learn a lot from those tip sheets. I think, Purview is a space that's constantly evolving. So perhaps if you just tell us some of those things, because I know the way you put it together is just so easy to consume and really understand that kind of content. So perhaps you can just share a bit about that. And also maybe in the grand scheme of things with SharePoint and other content services in Microsoft 365, where do you see Purview is heading towards that?
Okay, the infographics, as I call them, these kind of tip sheets that I put together, came from me learning the product myself and having conversations with customers where I felt they were struggling trying to understand this very broad topic area and how Microsoft has implemented the technology. I mean, there's fantastic documentation out there, but you need to have time to pore through it all, make sense of it all, what interacts with what. So I've done that learning myself, and so one of the value adds I have to my customer is consolidating it in a concise, consumable format, which was my hope out of those infographics.
Right. That's the main objective, right?
Yeah,
so
that's the main
good.
objective, to boil it down to something that's more easily understood. So I'm kind of bridging the gap. I call myself a bridge gapper between the customer and the Microsoft technology, and that's kind of where I fit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think also, if I'm not mistaken, you wear multiple hats in terms of the way you deliver your services as well, because I know, in fact, we're both involved with an organization where we're delivering courses, but that's obviously one part of it. But then you, from a historical background, obviously you worked with SharePoint. So perhaps if you kind of just tell us your journey from the community space and where you are and kind of what it took, what it takes to achieve that.
For sure. I have a SharePoint background from the on-prem days. So I was doing some SharePoint server administration, installing, patching SharePoint, and I had a developer background as well. And then moved into the cloud and attended conferences, not ESPC, but Ignite, and whatever Ignite was called before it was Ignite, I forget now.
There used to be TechEd as well, didn't they?
TechEd, yes. So love the sense of community and the learning from each other. So that, enticed me, I guess, to be more involved with the community, and I've just learned so much more from that. And getting back to the SharePoint piece, the fact that I have a very strong SharePoint background has served me very well in the world of Microsoft Purview compliance and some other features, SharePoint Premium now, formerly Microsoft Syntex. Understanding SharePoint, how kind of the back-end mechanisms work is very helpful. So I try to bring that and explain that to my customers as well. To focus on that, don't just focus on kind of the fun stuff in front. I mean, get those fundamentals down first.
Absolutely, and I think it's the entire set of content experiences that's obviously surfacing, and obviously this morning's keynote from Jeff Teeper, we heard about the SharePoint embed, right? So
Yes.
that's something to watch out for, at least because now it's stepping out of SharePoint, Microsoft 365 space
Yeah.
into some custom
Yes.
bespoke applications.
Yeah.
So that will be another area from a compliance perspective, what that might even look like, which we don't know. I mean,
No.
there's nothing around that. So any thoughts around that?
I
What you
did
thought
see
of it?
security and compliance was
Yeah.
specifically
Yeah.
called out in that graphic that Jeff had. I don't know anything more about that, but I'm, I guess, feel good that they've recognized this service that they're going to provide. They
Yeah.
need to ensure that the security and compliance features that they already have in force across Microsoft 365 tenants can be extended at least to
Right.
that environment, which is very important.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
indeed. No, well, I think watch the space. So definitely, I think there's a blog around that. So if you haven't checked in already, just head over to the SharePoint blog announcement and have a read about that. So I guess obviously, given where we are and in the space of what's happening with obviously AI and Copilot sort of things. So as we're heading in 2024. What are the 3 things you're expecting to perhaps even work on, or what do you see the priorities may lie from your perspective?
I think there will still be a fairly major effort and desire from customers to improve their security and compliance posture all up. I mean, it's a risky world we live in, so that is going to be a consistent thread. The AI capabilities that are coming have I think even pushed that even further in having the fundamentals, the framework, the underpinning, whatever you want to call that, of good data governance in your tenant in the first place, which of course involves many of the security and compliance features. Data loss prevention, information protection, data lifecycle and records management, making sure you're retaining content for as long as you need to, and then getting rid of it when you should, to ground that Copilot experience. So I think there's even going to be more and more interest in how can we make our environment more secure and compliant.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So
100%.
I think as you heard from Joanne, obviously the key thing is to look after your content, but don't keep it indefinitely.
Right.
Because otherwise, as much as the AI and Copilot can help you, all the benefits, but obviously you're going to get what data you have, right?
Yes.
So definitely, I think the retention and records management still plays very much a key part. I guess I haven't seen just on, if we just take that further a bit, from a Copilot experiences around records and retention management in Purview, haven't really seen anything on that.
No. I have seen it on the security side, but not yet anyway on the records management side.
Yeah, because I think, one of the challenges I find is like, when you have these capabilities available, and I understand they're subject to, E5 or A5 licensing sort of things for some of the capabilities, but there are still some adoption challenges, aren't there, from the organizations to really even take on, to really do retention and records management seriously.
Yes.
Do you find that as
100%. I mean, the language that I use and the approach I take will depend a little bit on the industry and the regulation that a company needs to be compliant with, of course, because that ranges quite widely. But yeah, it's the technology needs to be well understood and properly applied and operationalized. 100% it does, but that's only part of the picture.
Yeah.
There's the people part that is often not addressed and not considered early enough inside the project, and then there's all of the business processes you have around those. Some are good, some are not so good, and they all kind of need to work in tandem together. So I think when I work with customers, I try to approach all 3, and sometimes that's a bit of a challenge depending on the customer that I'm working with. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's given the pace of change too, right? So with all the services being rolled out and everything else, so we only have set amount of resources.
Yes.
And the bandwidth from the business users.
Yeah.
And not forgetting the the costs of investment. So it's a challenging part, isn't it, to
It
try and
is.
get that balance
Yes,
right.
yes. Running a business is not cheap when you consider all of these additional things that any modern enterprise
Right.
in this day and age needs to have these controls in place. I think.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I guess you're just more about your session.
Yes.
So your session, maybe if you just tell us about what your session is and
Sure.
and yeah.
Okay. My session is titled IT Pro Meets Data Lifecycle and Records Management. And I built this session from personal experience working with many customers where I would be talking to IT teams and they've been dictated that we need to roll out these capabilities. You know, we have E5, we have these features, make this happen. But unfortunately, it's not just a button clicking and keyboard
Right.
activity. It's a very front-loaded project that lots of planning needs to happen before anything is configured inside of the tenant.
Right.
And so helping IT pros understand the space a little bit more. What's the language of records managers? Even something as simple as that. Making sure the right people are at the table. IT, SharePoint, records managers, of course, and then some of those other compliance teams like legal, risks, security, having good foundational executive support. All of those things are really important. So trying to encapsulate this, give them the fundamental things they need to know about records management, so they can sit at that table knowing that, okay, I know kind of my part to play, and they need to be good partners with their compliance teams. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's in fact that's very interesting, because a lot of the times we find, especially in the IT space, you know, they jump straight to the admin centers, right?
Yes.
To try and at least explore and then hopefully try and build some proof of engagement. And I see it all the time, right? Where you see some test labels and attention services, and then you find, okay, you know, certain conversations has not taken place. And that sounds very interesting, because at least you're trying to bring the other business areas to on a table, basically, to at least talk to these things through, set the policies from a business perspective. So no, that should be good. I really look forward to that session, and I'm sure, you know, of the viewers, you know, we'll be able to tune into those. I'll certainly access your content. But I think, look, I just want to say, you know, a big thanks, Joanne, and you know, thank you for being here and giving up your time to share your insights and about your session. And wish you all the best, and enjoy the conference. And so, yeah.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
good one.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.